Hey guys, welcome along to MadeEasy.com. I'm Zach Stroud. Today we're going to talk about St. Augustine grass. I am in Florida right now, and I've seen a lot of these lawns, and these lawns look beautiful. This is a beautiful thick grass. I thought I'd do a quick video on this grass, and if you have one of these lawns, maybe this video will help you out. So stick around and we'll talk all about St. Augustine. St. Augustine is a really beautiful grass. It's kind of like a light to bluish color. If it's healthy, it has to be healthy for it to be that color. Here in Florida, where I am right now, I've seen it in a lot of these lawns, and I tell you, it's a real treat to see that, because where I'm from in the upstate of South Carolina, I don't really get to see that much because of so much of the clay soils that I have, rocky soils, and it's really not going to do well in those types of soils. You'll see it a lot in Texas, Florida, really those hot areas, Alabama. You'll see it really in those areas that, that's a really different type of heat that grass grows in, because I don't know many lawns that can really stand that heat, especially in the coastal regions. But it loves the sandy soils. It loves acidic soils all the way up to neutral. If you're going to try to grow that in more of a clay soil, I'm not saying it can't be done. You're going to have to do a lot of aeration, okay? You have to amend that soil. The roots really like to dig down into the soil, and that's where they like to be, because that's just what it does in these sandy soils. Well-drained soil is what it likes. So if you're going to try to grow it, you're going to have to do some aeration. It's a really picky grass. It doesn't, it has to be pretty much perfect. Otherwise, you're going to start seeing some thinning, maybe some brown patch. You may get some fungal infections. Then, if you're not in the right climate, it's probably just going to die out. So where we're staying, I see them watering the lawn a good bit. It's looking like they're watering it probably about 30 to 45 minutes a day to keep that St. Augustine really, really wet and moist, to get it through the day, because in well-drained soils, that water will just kind of flow through there. 30 to 45 minutes is looking like that's the kind of key to getting that to grow. It doesn't matter wherever you're growing that grass, what region you're growing it in. I know it won't be up in the north part, but if you're growing, right there in the southeast, in that area, you're going to have to really lay the water to it, because that well-drained soil, you're going to have to really put a lot of water on it to get it through the really hot days. You could also maybe add an extra 15 minutes during the, towards the evening. You could probably add another 15 minutes to that, just to make sure that grass is getting what it's needs. And a lot of lawns, they may need 1 inch a week, but I think St. Augustine is going to need a little bit more than that. You're looking at probably every day of watering, keeping that soil wet so it can grow. So also, I've noticed that mowing is really high, about 3 to 4 inches is what I've seen in some of these lawns. Now I've seen some of them where they've cut them down pretty short to about probably 2 inches, 2.5. But mostly, a lot of the larger communities or hotels, a lot of the more expensive places are really cutting it at about 3 to 4 inches. And I think what that's doing is protecting the roots of that St. Augustine. I know it's hardy to the sun, but it may be a little bit, as that sun cooks up during the later part of the day, it may need a little help from the shading of those wide blades, which are about 4 to 10 millimeters wide. That's pretty wide. That's pretty wide for a grass blade. So you can see it a mile away. As soon as I saw it, I recognized it. And it's almost like a centipede, but it's a little bit darker and a little bit fatter, but it's a beautiful grass. And mowing it's about 3 inches. So when you're fertilizing, you want to use a combination of a 15-5-10 or a 16-4-8. Those are really good fertilizers. You want to give it a little bit more of that nitrogen to get that green color, because the phosphorus in there is going to help that grow to the deep root system to get all the way down into that sandy soil. Okay, that's a pretty good fertilizer, especially put it as a slow release fertilizer. That'd probably be best. I'm not sure if we would use a granular or a liquid. I think a liquid would not be best in sandy soils because it's going to run through too quick. I'd probably use more of a granular in this case, just so that that'll be able to break down, and the St. Augustine will be able to absorb that and take it in and really just thrive during the season. And you'll want to probably do that at about 3 or 4 times a year, just about like every other lawn. Okay, so the problems that you have with St. Augustine is going to be your cinch bugs, okay, and some of the fungal infections, which a lot of these lawns get fungal infections. So that's not a huge deal, but the cinch bugs, from what I know about St. Augustine, is usually handled through the healthiness of the lawn. Okay, you can fight it with a neem oil. You can use it as like a natural insecticide, or you can use a chemical insecticide containing bifenthrin. These have been really, really helpful in getting rid of those cinch bugs. As far as the fungal infections, you can use any type of fungicide that you use on any other lawn. So that's not really a big problem. But the main thing is if you have these problems, it's mainly because St. Augustine is unhealthy. If you're trying to grow this lawn, just make sure it's as healthy as it can be. A soil test would be perfect in this instance, just to make sure that your lawn's getting everything it needs to fight off these fungal infections and any type of bugs such as the cinch bugs, any insecticides that really try to attack the lawn. So one of the problems you may run into with St. Augustine is thatch. As I told you earlier, the blade is really long. Like I said, it's 4 to 10 millimeters thick. And with that, if you're not taking that up with a bag, if you're not shooting it into a bag or some type of system like that and taking your blades off and you're just letting them kind of decompose, you're probably going to get a thatch problem. This is not uncommon with this type of lawn. Main thing you want to do is make sure you're raking this up at least once a month during the summer. Now, if you have a larger lawn, acre or more, you're probably going to have to rent a machine to take care of that thatch. But it looks like if you want to keep the thatch off of your lawn, then you're going to have to use some type of bagging system. And you'll know if the thatch is pretty thick by if the water's not getting absorbed or it feels a little spongy. You'll know then that you have too much thatch and you probably need to address that sooner than later. Another thing you'll need to do is, like we talked about, if you have clay soils, you'll have to aerate more than you would other lawns, okay? You're looking at about 3 to 4 times a year, where a lot of the other lawns, like the zoysia and the Bermuda, you're not doing that more than twice a year at most. Sometimes once is just enough for those types of lawns to do well. Like I said, St. Augustine is a little picky, so it likes everything to be perfect, drainage in the soil, and making sure it's able to push its roots down to grow as far as it can. And the best time to aerate would be, early spring, late summer. Maybe if you want to do some, in the first of the summer. If you want to do it 3 to 4 times a year, you'd probably start in April, do it again in June. Then you'd probably do it again, probably August, and then do it again into September. That'd be a pretty good schedule to follow if it needs that much aeration, just to make sure that it's getting the oxygen and the water it needs to grow. Okay, guys, so that's the end of this video. I hope it helps you out. If you're thinking about, growing St. Augustine, especially in maybe more of out of the coastal regions, you might have a little bit more of a problem doing that. Let me know in the comments if that's something you're thinking about doing. Let me know how it's going for you. But I hope this video helps you out, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, guys.